My transition story.
Thank you very much, Tim. It's good to be here today. My name is Tobore Olumoye. I am a personal finance coach. A bit about how I got to become a personal finance coach. I studied chemical engineering in the university, so I am actually a trained engineer. But in the course of looking for a job, my CV got into the hands of a banker and he submitted my name for an interview. I passed, I got the job, and spent almost 16 years in banking. And while I was in banking, I went through several units, departments, regions, etc. And all of that journey culminated in a journey to South Africa where I got trained to become a financial planner. When I went there and found out about personal financial planning, I knew there was a problem. There was a crisis in my home country, and that crisis needed to be fixed. I came back and became a financial planner for 2 years with my former organization. And then the transition began, the urge to move on and do bigger things began. And somehow that urge culminated in my resigning from paid employment and setting up my own firm. Today, I coach individuals on personal finance. I help them set up their financial plans and hold their hands for the beginning part of the journey. That's what I do. That's what I am. And in addition to that, I am married to an engineer. So he's a chemical engineer, just as I am. But he's kept the flag of chemical engineering burning while I am keeping the flag of personal finance burning. I have 3 kids and I live in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. That is who I am, Tobore Olumoye. Thanks, Tim. Tim, actually, I'm not sure it was a particular moment and I just said, oh, 12 o'clock today, I'm leaving paid employment. No, it was a series of events. First of all, I am an engineer. So I have the mind of an engineer. I like to fix things. I like to develop things. I like to see things grow. I like to work on things. I like to solve problems. Banking afforded me the opportunity to learn the other skills required for life. I learned customer service. I learned to fix problems within a corporate space. I learned all of that. In fact, I started becoming bored with my job from the first day I got into banking. But what kept me going, what made me, remember I was an engineer, I was planning, I'm hoping I would find myself with an IOC and be an international staff. I wasn't planning to work in any commercial bank. But what kept me going, what made banking interesting, exciting, and satisfying was the fact that in a day, I could see 100 customers and every single customer was unique. The problems they brought were unique to these individuals. They represented families, they represented fortunes, they represented hope. Many of them were the breadwinners of their organizations, of their families. So even though banking was tedious as a job, but fixing customers' challenges, helping them fix whatever the issue was extremely satisfying. And that was what kept me in banking, really. That's why I was able to stay 16 years, even though the job itself was stiff for me. However, after about 10 years in banking, I started getting irritated. The irritability was now obvious. Banking had changed tremendously. The corporate space was biting, not just about budgets, but your roles were becoming more constrained. We were no longer allowed to be as innovative and express ourselves. And besides, I was also growing older. As you grow older, you begin to realize that there's so much more you can do, so much more you can be. But there's a limit to how much of that you can do and be in another man's organization. By the time I turned 10 years in banking, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to stay too much longer. And I had a conversation with my husband and said, the time is up. I need to leave. I need to leave paid employment. So it wasn't an instantaneous thing. From when I was 10 till about 5+ years later, I had the desire to leave, but I couldn't leave at once. So what made me leave was a series of events. I was tired, I was bored. I felt there was so much more to do. There was a hunger in me to leave. But by the time I went for financial planning training and got back, it wasn't just a desire anymore. It was extremely urgent. It was a pain. I needed to move. I needed to move just the way I needed to breathe. I felt like I was in a prison. So all of that together, Tim, was what made me decide to leave. Okay, for everyone who has been in paid employment for any length of time, you will find out that they're always saying, I want to leave, oh, I want to leave, I'm tired, I will leave this work. We're not going to count all of years because that's just noise. At 10 years, I was already in that space. But however, when I made a decision, and by making a decision, I mean when I sat with my husband, I sat with stakeholders in my family and said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. To the point where I actually wrote my resignation letter was about a year, 1 year, about 1 year. It was now a conscious, deliberate effort, and all my actions leading up to that get towards leaving, getting my mind in the right frame to exit paid employment, begin to undo what paid employment had done to my psyche. So let's say, I'm not sure it was up to a year, but let's just call it 1 year for roundness. Oh yes, they all played fantastic roles. And team, I have a marvelous network. I have family, I have friends, I have people who genuinely care about my well-being. And each of them played a very important role. Let's start with my mother, because she was the one to be most affected. When I told my mom I was going to resign, banker, regional wanting of bank, you want to leave your job. My mom said to me, my daughter, have you thought this through? She knows I'm not an air-brained person. So she knew for me to utter those words that I meant business. And she asked me, have I thought this through? Have I thought this through? Do I know the implications? Am I sure? Is it just the stress? Can't I ask for extended leave? And I said, no, it's not the stress. And it's beyond leave. I need to go and get this done. I knew what her worries were. So I said to her, Mommy, don't worry. Your stipend for the next 1 year is sure, is guaranteed. Immediately I said her stipend is guaranteed. My mother, I said, oh, my daughter, God will go with you. I will pray for you. This stressful job. Oh, thank God for your liberation. Oh, this work wanted to keep my picking. So there was that. We had people in that category. Those are dependents. They say, oh, look, I know you want to go, but have you thought this through? The minute you assure them that your brain is correct and their expectations will not be cut short, their support came. Then I had colleagues who were senior colleagues and who were very worried. They were worried about cash flow. These are people who have seen people quit and fail, people quit, some succeed. They've seen people lose, I had all of those kinds of people. And said, look, Tobes, what about the ES? We can reassign you. We can we can help you. You've been in the organization for so long and you're an asset. Are you absolutely sure? In fact, one of them said to me, we will leave your role unadvertised for about 6 months to be absolutely sure you know what you're doing, in case your village people are part of the issue. Well, I had some of those, but they were not naysayers, but they balanced it out. They were there to say, look, in case this is a temporary pressure, think it through. I had those people. They were very important because they called me back to my senses and made me re-examine, keep questioning. As I had those people, then I had my core family, my children, and most importantly, my husband. I'd have quit about 2 years before I actually eventually quit. In fact, I wanted to quit at 10 years. At 10 years, my husband just told me very clearly, he didn't even miss words. He said, babe, I beg you in the name of God, please, for my sake, we are just starting, we're just building our home. If you quit now, I cannot cope with the pressure. My husband is a salary earner. He told me, as a family, it was an important decision. He said, please give me 2 years, give me 3 years. Let's get out of this phase. Let's stabilize. Or 5 years, let's have babies and then let them wean them completely. And then if you are ready to leave your job after 5 years, I will approve it. But please give me, he asked for 5 years actually, because we still wanted to have another baby or so. It was very painful to me at the time. And thank God I didn't leave then, because if I had left, I will explain to you later, Tim. If I had left at that time, what I would have done would have been minuscule compared to what I'm doing today. It would have just been plain small. But he asked for time. And that time he asked for was what gave me the opportunity to get into financial planning. Again, when he gave me that time, there was something he did to me. I had a 5-year, I had a post-dated approval, so to say, to quit my job. I had 5 years. Now, because there was an exit date, the work became lighter. When people are complaining, oh, management, I'll be smiling. And they'll say, are you all right? Are you okay? What is funny? Why are you smiling? Because I had peace. I knew that there was a terminal date for all of the burden. I was happier with customers. You need to see me. I was as if I had been promoted 3 times in a month because I had an exit date. I had that conversation with my husband and it was critical. He has been extremely grateful for those years. Those years also helped me consolidate on the family. We had our babies. So the transition actually started in my mind from when I was 10 years in banking. I'd done 10 years. And then I started mentally preparing for exit. So those were the stakeholders, husband, of course, my children. I needed to explain to them. Child of a banker is different from child of entrepreneur. Banker, you can tell me, I'll tell you at the end of the month, whatever it is.
For you.
Oh, yes, I'll get it. And I meant it. But now, we don't even make those kind of haphazard promises. But those were the stakeholders, and they were all very important to me. For me, it was extremely personal. Africans, especially Black Africans, are in crisis. The worst part of it is that we are in fool's paradise. We don't even know we're in crisis. Tim, I'll give you an example. I wanted to go pour fuel in my generator some days ago. I lifted the jerry can of fuel and saw a millipede under the jerry can. 1 drop of fuel on that millipede and it would have died. But this millipede was sitting under a 20-liter jerry can of fuel. The millipede was right in danger, but he didn't even know because there was a plastic protecting it. That is how we are in Africa. We are sitting on the keg of gunpowder. We are like the millipede. We are fine. We even think we are receiving shelter. The truth is we are all an endangered people because our finances are in jeopardy. The minute I realized that our personal finance as a people, as a race, is in crisis, I knew that there was work to be done. I had several experiences in South Africa that showed me, and with all due respect to the Black people, these experiences were Caucasian versus Black. Other races had Indians versus Black, and the Blacks kept falling short when it came to personal finance. That experience was the turning point for me. Before I got exposed to financial planning, I actually believed I was going to set up a cake and coffee shop. I make some of the best cakes you can imagine eating. My cakes are really nice. In fact, everyone who heard that I was resigning felt I was going to set up a cake or pastry and coffee shop. And that's what I would have done. It was a hobby. But this personal finance is a calling. I knew I needed to do that. So that experience, that awareness that my people are in crisis, my people need help, and we're not going to get out of this quagmire we are in if we don't fix our personal finances. That was the turning point, and that's what influenced my decision to quit and go into personal financial plan? To be honest, I'm not sure I had fears. Remember, this had taken quite a long time, 10 years, 50 years. What I felt was liberation. And I think in hindsight, I was a bit cocky. I felt I knew what I was going to do. I actually knew what I was going to do. I had it all planned, my game plan. Everything was on paper, on point. I stepped into that ring feeling like I had trained, I was ready, and I was going to face the enemy. I didn't have those kinds of fears. I'm not sure I had any fear, but in hindsight, knowing what I know today, I should have been afraid of my overconfidence. In hindsight, I was overly confident. And the reason I'm saying this is for anybody who wants to step out, who is absolutely sure. In entrepreneurship, there's no 100% guarantee. There are no guarantees. Your surety is a risk. In fact, it's actually a problem. So for me, I didn't have fears per se, or fear of the next pay, I didn't really have, because I knew I was going to make money. I knew I was going to conquer the market. That this thing I was bringing to the market was hot cake. Everybody wanted it. I learned my lesson. I learned very fast, and I was humbled speedily. Entrepreneurship will humble you. So I didn't have the fears then, but now I know I should have been afraid of my overconfidence. Oh yes, Tim. My biggest challenge was I had just made a transition from paid employment to self-employment. I had just set up my office. I was just setting up systems, and then COVID struck. COVID was a major disaster to my business, so the way I was doing business. But it was also a blessing, because when COVID came, I had to reinvent myself. So when I had just set up my business, I had just left paid employment, I'd set up my business, and I was trying to put systems in place when COVID struck. COVID was a major hit to my business, and it drastically affected the way I did business. Even though it was a disappointment and a shock, it also became a blessing, because COVID made me reinvent myself and was primarily responsible for the way I do business today. However, the second biggest issue I faced in my business was lack of awareness. Most Nigerians, in fact, virtually all Nigerians, do not understand what financial planning is, as different from in the Western world, where you know what financial planning is, you know what it entails. It's just a case of signing up. Nigerians don't even know what it is. So they don't know why they have to pay for the service. That lack of awareness, that total, absolute lack of awareness, is the biggest challenge I face in my business today, which meant that I had to start creating awareness first before offering solutions. It just made the job a lot more tedious. But beyond that, I'm not sure I had any other major issue, but that issue was the biggest challenge. In fact, it's still the biggest challenge I face today. It's just that I'm better at managing. Oh, well, I didn't have most of the ordinary kinds of difficulties you would expect, difficulties around funding, for example, because I was planning on going into a full service venture. So I had a plan. I had a business plan. So I knew how much I was going to spend. I had set funds aside. I had put some system in place. I knew what exactly I was doing. So funding in that regard was not exactly a problem. I also remember I said I was overly confident. So I also thought I knew what I was going to do. Most of the learning, most of the clarifications came after I had set up my business. That's when I knew that half of the things I knew were nonsense. I just knew a lot of nonsense. I didn't know anything. It was when I stepped out, because there's a limit to what anybody will tell you while you are in paid employment. You cannot understand it. It is when you have stepped out that you will understand. I like to say entrepreneurship is like marriage. At your wedding feast, everybody is dancing, everybody's happy, they're congratulating you. When they have gone home and you've gone home with your wife, that is when you will understand this marriage thing that you have entered. And by then, everybody has gone. Once you've left paid employment, the reality is very clear. The first thing that will hit you is on that 24th, when there is no alert. That is the first reality that will hit you. So you will now start falling back to reserves. Immediately, you start your reserves begin to deplete. That's the first reality. But I was prepared for that. I just wasn't prepared for the fact that I would have to start training Nigerians first before I can offer the service that I am currently offering. There were the reason I could quit in the first place. If I didn't have those plans, if I didn't have those numbers, if I didn't have those projections, for instance, COVID would have swallowed me whole. There would have been no business. I would have been back in paid employment. But because I had those plans, I had those projections, I had alternatives, I had options. If this doesn't work, I can do this in the term. All of those things which appear in all of the plans. How do I market? Where do I get clients from? And Tim, let me even say this. Again, remember I said I didn't have any fears, but there's the cockiness of thinking you have already made clients. You don't. To everyone out there in paid employment who says, oh, I have sure customers. I have sure off-takers. These people, once I quit, they will support my business. Please know it now that they will not. The support you receive in paid employment is because of the office you occupy, because of the service, because of the solutions you render to those customers. If you think that those customers, because those are the people I interacted with, the customers, if you think that those customers or your family and friends are going to give you support when you come out of paid employment, please forget it. Build alternatives. Think around, what if none of these people support me? What else can I do? Always have that at the back of your mind. It initially was an advantage because I didn't step into the ring with fear. So I was sure, I was confident. It also was an advantage because it meant even if I had to drink water for 30 days, I could not go back to paid employment. After all the noise I had made, I couldn't go back. I had to succeed. It was like burning my bridges. I just had to succeed. Those were the advantages. Disadvantages were I was not as prepared as I should have been. I had too many assumptions that were wrong. I had to learn humility. But good thing about me is my hunger for learning. I just set aside all the things I felt I knew, and understood that the market outside is different. Within the bank, everybody who comes to the bank is of good behavior. They come in, they are well dressed, they know they are coming to the bank, so they are primed for banking. So the customer you are seeing is a customer that is primed. In entrepreneurship, there's no priming. Nobody is primed. You are meeting them on the streets, so they will show you their real nature. Even in conversation, people that ordinarily will be calling you good morning, man, they'll say, excuse me, please, why are you calling me? That is what you see in all of those things. I understood those, and I was humble enough to understand that I had to learn or unlearn what I thought I knew, and then quickly relearn. Yes, and I learned very fast, and that saved me. Yes. Tim, in one word, they were the reason behind my success.
Fantastic.
For example, when I quit, just before COVID struck, as I was setting up shop, there were a couple of people who invited me to come talk to their members. And as I spoke to their members, to their different groups, it gave me exposure. These women, two of them were women, and some men actually, a number of men. These people created the launch pad for my business. My business is a service business, it's a talking business. The more people you talk to, the more you have access to new clientele. But how do you get into the space where your customers all sit? Without mentors, without people to open those doors, without those shoulders to climb on, you are going to struggle. Mentors, support groups. In fact, there was a support group I always attended twice a month. It was an entrepreneurs breakfast meeting. At that meeting, experts from different fields came to talk to us. That meeting is a crucial part of my success story today. So those support groups, the mentors, those women and men who gave me opportunities to go in, talk to their organizations, and referred me to other organizations. They were phenomenal to my success. And of course, I had an amazing support team back home. My husband gave me 100% support. Remember, he had made an appeal that I should wait a bit. I had waited. By the time I was ready to exit, he was, babe, go on. What's the worst that can happen? If the worst does happen, this is what we will do. I had that backup. Most times now, I will second guess myself. Suti, I'm not sure this is it. They said, see, babe, you've got it. You are right. You're on point. Go ahead. Give it all you've got. Do you need to travel? Oh, the kids are young. I need to travel. Go ahead. I'll take care of it. I've got this, because we don't have any form of help at home. It's just the three of us, the three children, my husband, and me. It's just the five of us. So if I had to leave, there was a major vacuum created. But my husband was always willing to step into that gap. So I didn't have that pressure of thinking, oh, who will take care of all those distractions? I didn't have them. So the support from mentors, support groups, family, friends, all of those came to play, and they were extremely important. I think for me, because I came out of banking, for me, what I miss most is that big corporate umbrella. I worked in a bank that had a group structure. What does that mean? It means if I need IT support, I just send an email and I get IT support. If I need a marketing tool, I just send an email to the head of sales. I get a marketing tool. If I need a flyer, I just send a message, and whatever you request to be sent to you, all you need to do is approval. That is what I miss most, that massive structure that gives you some form of cover, not necessarily monetary, no. Because as an entrepreneur, you are the marketing person. There's nobody to send any email to. You are the IT person. You are everything. You are the security. I mean, if you're in banking and the security guard was impolite to a client, you do a memo to his recruiters or to his supervisor, and it gets sorted out. This one, you are the security guard. So there's no where to fall back. Okay, what I did for transitioning was I had my salary for 1 year kept aside. Meaning the salary I was earning as a banker for 1 year in reserve, that was kept aside. I had funds for setup, all the things. And by the way, those were the things I thought I needed. Office space, furnishing the office, complimentary card. I must mention complimentary card. It was very serious for me. Tim, if you see my first complimentary card, oh my word. It was on point. I had ideas at the back of my mind. I knew what I was going to, all of those things. Knowing what I know now, I wasted a lot of money. But let's not talk about the things I thought mattered. Those were the things I set in place. I had this I came from a corporate background, so I felt I have to maintain that level as an entrepreneur. I had monies for those. I paid for a lot of things. Knowing what I know now. Remember, all the costs now are going to be borne by you. And it's not just your salary cost. There's the business cost. All of those costs are going to be borne by you. And for the first 1 year, even 2 years, in my case, it's spilled beyond 2 years because of COVID. All of those costs and emergencies and exigencies will all come from that pool. So you need to build a pool. You just have to have a reserve and then have takeoff clients at the back of your mind. Even though my takeoff client list, they did not take off, but you need to have those. So you have the pool of reserves, and then you need to think, how will I get my first businesses? Who is going to ensure that this reserve does not get depleted, or as it gets depleted, it gets refilled.
Great.
The first advice I would give to myself is to start preparing for my exit from the first day I get the job. So from the first day, and this is for everybody, even if you're going to retire in banking or wherever it is, at one day you will leave.
Yes.
From my first salary, I need to start building reserves for exit, because that day will come. That if I knew today what I knew then. That is one thing I would have implemented. Secondly, I would have learned more. I'm a voracious learner. I love to learn. I learn a lot. I am always learning. Even in my organization, there's a virtual institute that was set up by the bank where you could go in and learn anything. I think in all of the time I spend there, I think I'm the only one I never met anyone just go there to go and study. But I always studied because I knew a time would come when I would not have access to that kind of information. So I would have learned more, I'd have studied more towards my exit. So I can summarize by saying, knowing what I know today, my advice to my younger self will be start preparing for your exit from the beginning, from the get-go. And not just in terms of putting aside funds for reserves and exit, in terms of mental awareness, mental capabilities. Start studying as if you are going to get out of that job because someday you will. That's the advice I will give to my younger self. Start early. So, Tim, many things. There are several things. Number one, I would like to tell them transiting from paid to self-employment starts from the mind. You need to know that you will leave. Just know. If you know that you will leave, your decisions, all the decisions you make thereafter will most likely be the correct decisions. You need to also understand that there's a difference between, I like to call it hungry passion and hobby. When you want to start a business, because that's what happened to me, you need to understand that I like making clothes does not mean that I will be successful as a clothes maker business person. They're two different things. Because as a hobby, you are choosing to do it. It's something you just like to do. But as a business, your life is going to depend on it. So you're going to be answering questions around these clothes I'm making. Do others want these clothes? Are others interested in it? It's not what you like, it's what the world needs. Is it responding to a need? You need to start answering those kinds of questions. You need to make friends. Many people I see in the corporate space, you make enemies, silly enemies. You are bothered about things like promotion within one box. You are all, the best you can be in that box is you are going to be at the top of the inside of the box. You are all on the same side. I see people keeping enemies, making enemies of one another. You don't need it because when you go outside, you're going to need all of those friends, all of those connections. You need to pay for service. You need to pay to learn. People will give you, there's a limit to what people will give you for free. But when you pay, you get the deeper knowledge. There's a secret. It's like the secret I have in my business now. If you want to learn it, you are going to have to part with value for me to give you value. Most people in paid employment don't want to pay. They think they can get it for free and then they make mistakes. You need to pay. At the back of your mind, know that part of my reserves will be reserves for payment, for information, for services, for knowledge, for support. Know that you're going to have those and then begin to build the relationships you will need when you quit or when you are asked to go. Because one will either they'll ask you to go or you'll go yourself. When you are asked to go or when you leave, you're going to need those relationships. Begin to build those quality of relationship. And now that the internet is everywhere and everybody has access to everyone else, utilize all of those connections. When you go home at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. or 9 p.m., that's not the time to sleep. That's the time to start dedicating 1 hour, 2 hours to the future you foresee, the future you have at the back of your mind. That is the time. So, dear friends and paid employment, that I got right. I started building, I started thinking mentally, I was prepping myself. And that was what saved me. Many people quit their jobs with me. Many lost their jobs with me. Many of them started businesses. Today, very few of them are still in business. They had to go look for jobs because they simply couldn't sustain the businesses. If you want to succeed in business, try to remember these things I have said, and believe me, you will succeed.
My transition story.